Welcome back, one and all. We're back at our shooting gallery game, and we just got started in the last tutorial, did some background images. We're going to add some sprites and add a few objects. Remember, when you create your sprite, I like to just right-click on the thing that says sprite, and I create sprite from images, and I am in the wrong folder. And so, as I recall, I put it in the assets folder. And so we're just going to proceed to add these. So you're going to open it up, and then we are going to change the name to say sprite underscore, and then whatever the name of the file is. So I'm going to do that for the rest of these, and then we're going to talk about configuring them. So what we'll do is we'll just come back, and like I said, I will do each of these. One thing I do like to do is cheat a little bit. Not really cheat, but like take a little shortcut. So I'm going to copy that text of crosshair. I'm going to click open. And then I am going to change this just like there. I just did a paste, Control V to paste, so I have that sprite there. So I'm going to go ahead and add the rest of my sprites, and we'll come back and we'll talk about how to set up the sprites and talk a little bit about a thing called the origin and the collision mask. Okay, so let's take a look at some of these. We're going to look at the duck first of all. And on the duck, we've got over here, one of the things we want to do is a thing called origin. Now, origin is what part of the sprite, basically, it's hard to explain. So if I put the origin at 0, 0, it's at the upper left-hand corner. That origin is wherever I place the sprite, it's in relationship to the origin. So if I just were to drop it on a scene, and then it would be wherever that origin happens to be touching. Now we can change this right here. We're going to make it middle center. So that's right in the center. Actually, no, I want to do it at the bottom center. The reason why I'm putting it at the bottom center is I want it to sort of travel along. And you know how like the ducks tend to be sticking up above the water a little bit? I think it's good to just put a reference point right around there. And so I put it at the bottom in the center. Those are the actual numbers. You can hand type those in. You can do a little bit of math and figure out the width and the height and take half of each. Half of the width is the X position of the center. And then all of the height would be at the bottom. Okay, a couple things about that is, let's go back, and this might be one of those things that throws you off. If you recall in your algebra class, when you're graphing a function, you most likely consider 0, 0 to be a dead center. And that's not the case with most game development engines. 0 on the X is always at the left, which is standard, but 0Y is actually the top of the screen. So when we measure an image, a digital image, we measure its width and its height. And so the width, the height, so maybe that will help you kind of think about it. But either way, when I do middle center now, you see it's 57, 54. Notice that's a positive number. We don't have any negative numbers when it comes to origin, although I suppose you could move it, make it negative, but that wouldn't make a lot of sense. So I put it right here on the screen, and then on collision mask, I want to make sure it's set to automatic. And I'm just going to do precise. Okay. Precise means it's going to be precisely the size of the graphic. Now, let's take a look at this sprite, the duck with a target. First of all, it was supposed to be duck target to indicate a duck that had a target on it. Okay, so on here, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and notice I've made the origin at the bottom center again, just like the other duck. That's fine. But you have to actually hit the target in order to register a hit. So for that, what you have to do is I went in and I made an ellipse. Okay, so I made an ellipse and then I gave it these values, left of 34, right of 72. You want the left and the right hand corner of that ellipse in the bottom left, or I'm sorry, left and right, and then top 57, bottom 93. So that basically gives us the square. But it's not a square, it's an ellipse, excuse me. And so that just perfectly fits within the target. And so that's an important piece there on the duck target, because you only want part of that image to be the thing that hits, that registers the hit. And I just knew all the numbers. So let's take a look at some of the other ones that we did. Sprite target. This thing, we put the origin dead center because it's a target. We want that at the center. Same thing goes for the target bullets. You go over here. That's also set to the center. Collision mask, I believe by default will be precise. I don't think I changed anything on there. Most of these are pretty simple. And so we have sprite hole. We also put the center there, the origin, 15, 15. And we have a game over. We put that in the center, middle center. And then on the sprite ammo, we also drop that in the middle center also. Collision mask. This one is not, we don't need to worry about this for a collision mask. In fact, we're not going to use the sprite hole as a collision mask either. And I'll explain. First of all, this is just going to be a sprite to indicate how many bullets we have left to shoot. When they run out, the game is going to end. The bullet here, we don't need to register any hits because it's just going to sort of appear on the screen when we fire it to just indicate where things are. But we're going to detect a hit based on the cursor. So basically, there's one more sprite we have here. Maybe I haven't. Oh no, I haven't added that one yet. Let me just add one more sprite from an image. Excuse me. Crosshair. So sprite underscore crosshair. We're also going to make this a middle center. And now what this is going to be is we're going to basically tie this in with the mouse cursor in the position of the mouse cursor. And so we want to position it right in the center. Now notice when I open up the collision mask on here, it just says mode, type, rectangle. Again, this is not, it's not about this. We're not even going to use this to register. When we click, we're going to just register where the mouse button happens to be. So those are our sprites. Most of them have an origin of middle center, except for the ducks. Those at the bottom. And the only other difference is that the sprite target has its, the duck target, excuse me, has a separate, elliptical collision mask. And those are the values that you want. Left 34, right 72, top 57, bottom 93. Okay, so there you have it. And now let's go ahead and let's make our first object. And we're going to start with the sprite hole. And basically what we want, the hole is going to do is that when we click on the screen, it's going to appear. And it's going to be there for about half a second and it'll just go away. Just to sort of indicate that we made a hit, and it will be a good visual as to where you hit. It's always good to give a little visual feedback. For now, we're going to create an object for it. And at this point, oh, I already had the object hole. I must have already created it. So let me walk you through the creation of it and the setting. Okay, I deleted it. So now we want to go back and we're looking for objects. And notice that now I have the object is sort of, it's faded now because we don't have any objects yet. By the way, Alt-O will create your object. And so this object, we're going to call it object underscore hole. And we're going to change the sprite to be the sprite hole. Okay, so now we have an object that has a sprite. And like I said, it's just going to appear and half a second later disappear. So objects are a little different from sprites. Objects have all of the different commands. So what we're going to do is we need to figure out, okay, how do we make it so that that it basically exists for half a second? What we're going to do is that on the create event, the create event is triggered the first time it appears. So let's say we're going to eventually tie it in with the mouse and I click on the screen. It's going to appear where that clicks. We'll deal with that a little bit later, but for now, the point is that once it appears, that's the create event. So what are we going to have it do when it appears? Well, first thing we want to do is set a timer. Okay, so if you're not sure and you're looking for something, you can start typing out timer and then you'll see it. And there it is. It's alarm countdown. Okay, so this is basically setting your alarm. So alarm, if you look here, if I click on this little button here, you'll see that there are 12 alarms in all. The first one being 0. And you might think that's kind of strange, but this is actually very common among programming languages. We do a thing called zero-based index, which means the first item always begins as 0. Okay, so don't worry about it. Just pick alarm 0. Honestly, you can pick any number you want that is available here, where it's going to do 0. And the countdown, in this countdown determines how many steps or how many loops of the game will happen before the alarm goes off. Okay, they call that steps. And if you go to the room over here, the room setting, instances. Oh, I need to go to background, room, physics, viewports, camera. Oh my goodness. All right, I'll get it. Hold on a second. I'm back. I found it. Background layer properties, animation speed, that's set to 15. We need to change that to I think we're going to do it to 60. 60 loops a second. Go ahead and lock it. Oh. Hold on. Maybe I have to do it at 30. Wow, it does not want to change it. Okay, we've moved it back to 60, or to 30, I mean. I'm just going to leave that lock undone. And we're going to go back to our object hole. Alarm 30, or alarm 0, countdown, we're going to do 15. If there are 30 frames per second, 15 frames will be half a second. And all this is setting your alarm. Just like you're going to bed at night, you set your alarm for the next day. Now what we have to do is we're going to add another event, and that's when this alarm 0 goes off. So we're going to click on event, and guess what? There's an alarm event. You pick your alarm. It's 0. So basically what this is saying, when the alarm 0 goes off, what do you want it to do? We are going to have it destroy itself. Sounds kind of sad, but here we go. Now, the destroy instance is what it's technically called. It's a little trash can here, and you may not see it. You might have to go down to instances. So they've grouped them. There's some common ones, instances. That's what we want. The trash can with a little dot in it basically means we are destroying this particular object on the screen. Now, we want to make sure it's an instance, because if we were to say all, it would be everything would get destroyed on the screen. If we were to do self, I believe, I don't know. Just there are unintended consequences when you change that. So destroy instance is your safe bet. What we're going to do is we're going to go to the room, and we're going to put some instances on the room. So I'm going to open this up, go back to my room, and I'm going to go ahead and get my object. So I have to click on instances, and I think all I have to do is just drag an object out. Yeah. So we're just going to drag a couple out here, and we're going to run it. Do you notice how they disappeared after about half a second? There you go. So that's working. The only thing is that what we want to do is we want to get rid of those instances. We're not actually going to play the game that way. And it looks like I'm running low on time. So on my next tutorial, I'm going to go a little bit deeper into some of the objects. Specifically, we're going to make that crosshair follow the mouse. So stay tuned for that video.